Hello and welcome to week 9. This is Heidi Harris, your instructor in Writing 122. And I just wanted to do some review following up on the activities in week 8 and talk about some deadlines and some things to consider as we move into doing the full draft of the paper in week 9. So first of all, I wanted to say I just finished grading the outlines from week 8 and also the research that you did in week 8. First of all, I wanted to say, as I posted in this announcement, I really like that you what you did with week 7's audience analysis, really looking at what kinds of things the audience is going to believe, their values, and following up with that, the research that you did in week 8 is really excellent as well, because you're finding specific articles that address the points of your opposition. So a few things that I wanted to address with that is, first of all, some of you mentioned that the opposing points that you came across were actually valid. It's fine to acknowledge those valid points in your argument. In fact, it's actually a way of making your argument stronger to acknowledge your opposition. It's not a good idea to necessarily just name call or blame that, say, well, that position's just ludicrous. You want to focus in this argument, even if you can't completely change the minds of the people that you're addressing, at least help them to be able to understand and see your viewpoints. The other thing I wanted to say is that as you're setting up the argument that you're making, think action-oriented. Even if you can't get your audience in particular to change their point of view, what you want to think about as the end result in the perfect world is the action you would like them to take. So if you could, in the perfect world, write an argument, have your audience change their mind, what would you then like them to do with the information? And that action can kind of keep you motivated and working toward writing a strong argument for that audience. So the activity that we did in week 8 with outlining, several of you had questions on, and so I want to go over what I'm looking for, because that outline should translate fairly specifically directly into your paper. So the claim that you're making should fall somewhere around the introduction. Those main points should be the main points for your body paragraphs. So making sure that you have that outline down pat is going to be important. So I wanted to go over this reading because some of you asked about alignment and what does it mean when I say to align your claim, your main points, and your subclaims. And this is what I'm talking about. So what this diagram talks about is basically your claim. Oops, sorry, I thought I could highlight that. Smoking should be banned on campus is the main claim. So let's suppose that that was your claim. In outline form, you would state that as your first point, or point Roman numeral 1 in an outline. So I argue that smoking should be banned on campus. Your subpoints are going to be the because statements that come from that. So if you were talking to an audience and they said because, the statements that you make after that are going to be your main points. So here there are two because statements, because of health repercussions, because of environmental repercussions. And those main points are kind of going to frame the body of the argument. So in outline form, those look like this. Smoking should be banned on campus because of health repercussions, because of environmental repercussions. Now, when you actually go to write the paper, those sentences might be a little bit too formulaic for the flow of the paper. You can modify those once you get into the writing, but those should be kind of the overwhelm or the guiding points, the main points that you're going to make in the paper. You might have 2, you might have 5. It just kind of depends on what the argument is that you're making. So when I talk about alignment, I talk about aligning this so the main points make because statements. And then you go on to the second step to develop your subclaims. So here's your main claim. These are your main points that answer your because statements. And your subclaims answer the question, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, what support do you have for that claim? So in other words, okay, you say that smoking should be banned on campus because of health repercussions. What support do you have for that claim? And those are your subpoints. Well, my support is that it affects students with allergies and it affects students with asthma. So those are the specific subclaims I'm making based on the main point of this primary claim. Same thing with the other side. So basically what I'm looking for in these subclaims is that they align with or demonstrate or prove this main point you are making. And this is what it's going to look like in outline form. So main claim, these are your main claim. These are your main points, and then these are your subclaims. And the subclaims are what you're going to use your evidence to prove. And all of this should align so that I can read from the main claim to the main point to your subclaims, and all of these align or make sense. And what I see happening sometimes is that the main claim is solid, the main point supports the main claim, but then when you get down here to the subclaims, these aren't proving your main points. So in other words, they're not saying, what support do you have for that claim? So every time you structure your argument, or every main point you make for your argument, ask, what support do I have for this claim? Well, these are the types of support that I have, and the evidence goes to demonstrate those support statements or those subclaims. So this paragraph in the reading is kind of the key to that whole structure. So if I've asked you to revise, what I'd like you to do in your main argument is go through, make sure your claim is the argument that you're making, that each of your main points adds a because statement to your claim, and that each of your subclaims, and this is important, answers that question, what support do you have for this claim? And these can be more broad statements, but they need to be ones that you can support with evidence. And that evidence might be, sorry, I'm a horrible typist, might be research that you've done, it might be personal experience, it has been a late night. Any kind of evidence. So you should see, well, my whole thing just disappeared there. That is odd. You should be able to see that kind of alignment. When I talk about alignment, there we go. Each one of these points after the main claim should support or add to that claim. And what I saw in some areas where the subpoints kind of went off into different areas, if the subpoint doesn't relate to that main point, or the subclaim doesn't relate to this point, it becomes a separate main point under the original claim. So I hope that cleared up a little bit of that question about alignment. What I'm looking for is this direct diagram, or this direct organizational plan that you'll then take to help structure the paper that you are going to submit on Thursday. So that's the other part I wanted to review. In week 9, we have a draft and peer review as our main activities. For those of you who have a score and clearance to go ahead with drafting the final argument, go ahead and do so. Just make sure you follow the suggestions that I had for revising that organizational draft. You'll submit the final draft, the rough draft for the final argument, through Google Docs, and here are your peer review partners. When you submit that Google Doc, in addition to sharing it with me, you'll share it with the person opposite of you. So Jill and Andra, Laura and Kristen, et cetera, all the way down the line. If you don't receive a draft from your peer reviewer, please email me Friday morning, and I can find out what's going on and make sure that all the peer review drafts get swapped. Then for your peer review itself, you're going to focus on the content and focus on that kind of organizational structure. So in other words, focus your comments on substantive issues. If they have grammar or mechanical issues, you can feel free to kind of edit those, but I try to caution students from staying away from that because you can get overwhelming, and I would rather you focus on substantive issues. So are the main points and subclaims relating to the main claim? Where could additional information be added? Are the arguments and evidence logical? These are the 3 big questions that I'd like you to focus on. You should be able to just highlight the section of the text that you'd like to comment on and click comment. That'll allow you to put a comment directly into the paper. Those are due Sunday. There were 50 points, and hopefully they'll give you some good feedback from a colleague that will help you edit and revise your paper for week 10. In week 10, I'm actually going to be traveling the end of week 10 and the beginning of the final week. So I'm going to go ahead and review those weeks right now because I probably won't have a chance to do another video and overview. Week 10, the only thing you have as far as an assignment is your final argument submission. So basically you just submit it to me in Google Docs. You can either edit the copy of the document that your peer commented directly on or make a separate copy to submit to me if you want to keep those comments. And then in week 10, I'm going to enable the course evaluation button. I'll probably actually do that in week 9. If you can please go in and evaluate. Your feedback for the class is really important to me. Whether it's positive or negative feedback, that doesn't matter. Just that you do provide feedback so I can evaluate and revise my classes. I don't see the feedback till after grades are submitted, so if it is negative, there's no repercussion, and if it was negative, there wouldn't be repercussions anyway because I don't operate that way. I know some faculty might, or you might fear that some faculty would. And then the final in the class is a rhetorical analysis, just like the rhetorical analysis we did in week 5. Only instead of a rhetorical analysis of what you find, you'll actually do a rhetorical analysis of the final draft of the paper that you did the peer review on. So for the peer review, you'll be kind of helping your peer partner strengthen their argument, and then in that final rhetorical analysis, you'll be doing the same kind of rhetorical analysis that you did for week 5. If you have any questions, as always, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk to you either via email. We could set up a chat or a Google Hangout, or I could call you on the phone if you're struggling with a particular concept in the class. I hope to be doing a final video that kind of gives a summary of the class total by the end of the class. But if not, this might be the last time you'll be hearing my voice this term, which will probably make you pretty excited for the class to be over. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I hope to be reading your final arguments shortly.